Hey, everybody, welcome inside the sit down. Ryan Mayer, now joined by the CEO of Collectible, Ezra Levine. Ezra, thank you so much for taking some time to speak with me today. How are you?
Doing great today, thanks.
So, want you to take me through first the idea for this app, and I should mention what it is: an opportunity for sports fans to own fractional shares of sports memorabilia, some of the biggest sports memorabilia that we've ever seen. So, just take me through what was the seed of this idea? How did it all grow to this point?
Sure, yeah. So our app is a platform where we give access to sports fans of all income brackets to own and invest in the greatest artifacts of sports history. You're talking about some of the most rare, the most cultural significant items that there ever has been. Our view and our mission is to democratize access to ownership for these items. If you look historically, there have been lots of money being made and lots of pride experienced from ownership of these items. But the catch has been is that they've never been affordable or accessible to sports fans of all income brackets. As we know, everybody loves sports. Everyone has some of their best associations and memories with sports. And our mission is really just to open up the playing field for anyone who wants to participate.
For sure. And I know that sports fans are used to seeing some of those eye popping numbers, as you mentioned, over the years for some of the memorabilia that gets sold and bought at these various auctions. So if you wouldn't mind taking me through a little bit of the app and how it works, how fans can expect to interact with these pieces that you were mentioning.
Yep, we tried to create a really consumer friendly product. So all you have to do is download our app. It's eligible for iOS and Android now, soon to be on desktop, by the way, soon to be on desktop. And you can browse our offerings. We have some of the greatest items in sports history, real American treasures. One that we're incredibly excited about, just as a quick plug, we're doing arguably the most iconic card in history, certainly the most iconic card in the pre-war era, a 1916 Babe Ruth high-grade rookie card for 3.69 million. This will absolutely shatter Collectible's previous record of the largest fractional ownership investment in history, right? But back to your question about how they actually experience the product. Yeah, you download our app, you browse our offerings. When you see something you like, you simply click buy shares, and within about a minute's time, you are the proud owner of, again, some of the most iconic items in sports history.
And in that sense, I almost want to compare it a little bit to kind of a stock market, as it were, for sports memorabilia in terms of owning those fractional shares of these larger memorabilia items. You mentioned the Babe Ruth card there. So just as users continue to interface more with this app, just how do you see it continuing to evolve here?
Yeah, look, I think that's a very easy way to look at this, right? People are familiar with fractional shares of stocks. When you own shares in Facebook, you are a fractional owner of Facebook, the company. It is the exact same concept that we've taken and applied to the high value sports collectibles market. When you own shares in the Babe Ruth rookie card, you're an equity owner, you own shares and stock in that item, just like you would Facebook on the public markets.
Now, for you, I know one of the things that has really been a lot of talk in the sports memorabilia space here over the last several months, and particularly over the last several weeks, have been NFTs and their place in the culture and what all of that means. So, for sports fans who are seeing all of these topics, whether it's NBA Top Shot, I know Topps recently announced some things as well. How do you see the memorabilia space, the way that you guys are going about it with these physical items of memorabilia that are fractional shares versus the NFT market, which is quite a bit different?
Look, this has been one of the more exciting times probably in our industry's history. Our industry had a reputation for a long time of being this sleepy, fragmented category, kind of that third little stepsister, if you will, to sports gambling and fantasy sports. What you're seeing now is our sports collectibles are top of mind, right? People are talking about sports collectibles in a way they've never talked about them before, right? We are now the third-headed monster, not that third-headed sister, right? So, I think this is really just the tip of the iceberg of what you're going to see from the collectible space. The collectible space right now, is white hot for a couple reasons. I mean, my personal view is that this industry, especially sports collectibles, really lives at the intersection of what we like to say is passion and profits, right? It's both an incredibly fun user experience, right? We're getting a lot of mainstream adoption from the likes of athletes, influencers, media outlets like CBS Sports covering our space, right? You also have this being looked at as a legitimate alternative asset. Our generation, younger generations have proven that they may not want to invest like previous generations do, and they're looking for alternative assets. When you look at the historical performance of sports collectibles as an asset class, there is a legitimate case to be made that this deserves to be part of everyone's portfolio, right? So, I think what you're seeing right now is a combination of widespread consumer adoption, more just general excitement and innovation and technology coming into the collectibles category, and this being looked at as a legitimate alternative asset class. And I think those three things in what we call a supply constrained marketplace are really powerful effects that I think you're starting to see take shape.
And you mentioned some of the excitement for the younger generations in this space, and the opportunities that are being afforded to them to invest in some of these alternative assets. But I do wonder, because there is some of that skepticism, of course, as well, that will feature around these types of items. You can just think back to the way that anything in terms of Bitcoin or anything else blockchain related was thought of prior to maybe the last 2 years or so, where you've really started to see that climb. So just how do you address that skepticism around not only NFTs, but from your perspective, the fractional shares of these items?
Well, look, we're exclusively dealing in the most iconic, the most rare, the most scarce, and the most time tested of assets, right? So that's where collectible is playing. Our view is that, again, this is something that's time honored, right? Sports cards and sports collectibles are items that have held value for hundreds of years, right? So this is not just a flash in the pan. This is something which has been happening for a very long time. It just hasn't been accessible or affordable or fun for people of every income bracket all across the country and soon all across the world. Our strong view is that this is absolutely here to stay. I think you're seeing what the power of some new technology and new market participants and a huge infusion of money coming to the space can do for this category. And I personally think, again, we're only dealing at the upper end of the industry. I have no comment on some of the other parts of the industry, but at our parts of the industry, we're incredibly excited about what the future could hold here.
And I want to take you back into the app as well, because you mentioned the Babe Ruth offering that you have coming up. But I wonder, outside of that one, what are some of the other favorites that you personally have that are available to users of Collectible?
Well, we've got some unbelievable items. We have some unbelievable items. So, aside from our Ruth offering, which again is going live next Sunday night, it's going to be an absolute record shatterer of our own previous record. The previous record was set with a Mickey Mantle 1953 PSA 10 card, which we sold for 2.5 million. It is now trading on Collectible secondary market for 3.5 million. So that's an unbelievable offering, only two of them in the entire world. If you're not into cards, but you happen to be into more memorabilia, game use stuff, we have the actual title belt that Muhammad Ali won in Rumble in the Jungle, a very cool offering. We've got some Jordan game use rookie jerseys. We've got a lot of Kofax stuff. So, if you're into sports, if you're into sports history, if you're into sports culture, you will absolutely come to our app and find something you love.
And one question that I think springs up maybe when talking about your app and the fractional ownership of this item, you mentioned the fact that it is really cool that fans get to own a piece of this history, rare history in a lot of areas, but there is some I don't want to say value, but there is some idea to, I own this thing fully. When you own a share of Apple, maybe you have also an Apple iPhone that you paid for. You see that as, I own this specific product. So for you, how do you interact with users in terms of the ownership of the shares of that particular item, and making sure that they feel like, I am actually the owner of, whether it's the Michael Jordan sneakers or the Babe Ruth card, whatever the case may be?
Yeah. Yeah, look, I think this new generation of investors have proven that they don't necessarily care about owning these things physically. They care about having, a real emotional interest and a real financial interest digitally in these items, right? So, people know that they are true equity owners in these particular items. They can see it in their portfolio. They can see the values hopefully going up, although that's not a guarantee. And we try to educate them, we try to provide opportunities for them to learn as much as they possibly can, to again to experience really what we like to call as a tangible asset that has real passion behind it, right? People are really passionate about these things, and by the way, they're also an opportunity to make money or to invest in something that has historically done pretty well, right? So we try to impart all that emotional connection as best we possibly can. We've got a lot of ideas planned, once COVID lifts and we can actually, sort of interact physically. So we'll have to come back on the show to talk more about those opportunities.
Yeah, and one of the things that actually comes to mind for me, you mentioned the pandemic, and there's obviously unfortunate circumstances across the country, but I do think for people that have been at home over this last year, they've picked up new hobbies, and one of those, of course, being collecting and sports memorabilia. So I wonder, have you seen maybe more people coming into the space just interested in getting involved over this last year when they've been starting to pick up some of those new hobbies?
There has been no question that the interest in sports collectibles has dramatically picked up during COVID. I think the thought that COVID sort of sparked this rejuvenation in collectibles really is not correct from an industry viewpoint. If you look back before COVID happened in 2019, you were seeing record-breaking prices. You were seeing increased interest in the category well before COVID. I do think COVID kind of sparked it a little further, threw gasoline on the fire, for lack of a better term. And that interest, I think, really, what we're seeing is once people experience it, they love it, they get hooked. I do think COVID was a spark plug for it, but I really think it set an incredibly powerful foundation for this industry to continue to grow to heights I don't think people dreamed possible even a couple years ago.
Now, the final question that I have for you, and it's just one forward facing, as you look to the future now for Collectible going into the next several years, 5, 10 years, what do you want it to continue to evolve to be over time?
Look, our job is to provide best in class opportunities for sports fans all across the country today and soon all across the world to opportunities that they would never otherwise have before. We also want to do this in a way that celebrates the history of sports and the legacies of those athletes that you really created these unbelievable memories for us. So I think we just continue doing what we've done so far, providing best in class opportunities. Then we will be very, very happy with it, with our outcome, and in the next couple of years as well.
Well, Ezra, as always, thank you so much for taking some time. I appreciate it. For anybody interested in checking out Collectible, as he mentioned, available both on iOS and Android app stores right now, and as he said, coming to desktop soon. Ezra, thanks so much for the time.
Thanks so much for having me.